Stop Line 3's pipeline protest today reminds us that environmental activism is also an urgent feminist issue. I'm Yoonj Kim, and this is MTV News Need to Know. Last month, 7 men were arrested during a sex trafficking sting in Minnesota near the Enbridge-owned Line 3 pipeline. At least 2 were pipeline workers. The sting was conducted by county and state officials working with the Tribes United Against Sex Trafficking Task Force. The men were caught talking with undercover agents posing as a 16-year-old girl named Jasmine through sex advertisement websites. One pipeline worker was charged with 1 count of solicitation of a person believed to be a minor, and the other was charged with 1 count of carrying a pistol without a permit and soliciting prostitution. Both men have been fired. These arrests didn't come as a surprise for environmental activists. Pipeline opponents have long raised concerns about an increase in trafficking of Native women near camps, which brings to mind a question posed by Indigenous writer Abaki Beck. Why aren't fossil fuel companies held accountable for missing and murdered Indigenous women? Enbridge, the state of Minnesota, and Governor Tim Walz all knew this could happen. For corporate profits and political gain, they approved the exploitation of women and Native land. It needs to stop. No more stolen women or girls. Indigenous women face murder rates that are over 10 times the national average. And this could be the longest running epidemic of violence in the country due to our genocidal colonial history. Today, the median age of victims is just 29 years old. And violence against Indigenous women is overwhelmingly committed by men outside of the Indigenous community, especially near pipelines. These pipelines are directly linked to an increase in violent crime, sex trafficking, and rape cases. Line 3 is one of 6 Enbridge pipelines carrying thick crude oil from Canada to Wisconsin and crosses 2 Native American reservations, Leech Lake and Fond du Lac. This is why Line 3 opponents are so concerned that this will exacerbate the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Dr. Desi, a Cheyenne-Chicana UCLA professor, told Vice News,
"Why is it that we are more likely to be raped and murdered than go to college? Why is it that our young girls are just trying to survive?"
As Indigenous journalist Ruth H. Hopkins tweeted, how our country navigates tribal law is a big part of the problem. There's multiple causes for the MMIW epidemic, like legal loopholes that allow non-Native predators to escape prosecution by tribal law enforcement, and the fact that Native women are highly sought after by sex traffickers due to rarity and exotic appearance, aka being fetishized. These legal loopholes refer to the fact that Native reservations are essentially getaway-free zones for outsiders committing sexual violence and other crimes. Or to put it simply, Native law enforcement can't arrest non-Native perpetrators. They have to call their local sheriff's department or the feds, who often don't show up or show up way too late, which makes it easy for out-of-town oil workers to target and hunt young Indigenous women. Not enough people seem to understand what this means, which is that in America, the system is set up so you can get away with murder if the victim is an Indigenous woman on tribal land. She is then effectively erased because the US doesn't keep track of missing tribal members, and documenting their deaths has been taken up by organizations led by Native women like the Sovereign Bodies Institute. In Minnesota, organizations like the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force warned that Line 3 would put Native women in danger. But at a Line 3 hearing, Sheila Lamb testified on the dangers this pipeline will pose to natural resources and the heightened risk of sex trafficking to Native people. Enbridge representatives sat in the back at her testimony and laughed at her. Not once were they asked by anyone in the room to stop. Today's protest in Minnesota against the Line 3 pipeline, organized by GNU Collective, is on the anniversary of our country's largest inland oil spill, which Enbridge is responsible for. But while companies like Enbridge are sometimes fined for spills, they have yet to be held accountable for the human toll of missing women. This is especially devastating given that Indigenous women are leading today's most pivotal environmental actions, with groups like Honor the Earth led by Winona LaDuke, Tara Huska at the head of the GNU Collective, and many more. Their intersectionality is a reminder that we can't protect the Earth without protecting the people too. I'm Yoonj Kim, and that's what you need to know.